Dog won't stop barking at military patrol ship. Police arrive and what they find stuns the Navy. The metallic echo of boots against steel reverberated through the narrow corridor as Officer Sarah Collins pressed herself against the cold wall, her breath forming small clouds in the unusually chilly air. 300 miles off the Atlantic coast, the USS Shadow Hawk cut through international waters like a ghost ship. Next to her, Max, her Belgian Malinois partner, stood rigid, ears forward, every muscle in his powerful body tense with anticipation. 2 hours earlier, everything had seemed routine. Now, Sarah's world had turned into a nightmare of betrayal and murder. "Easy, boy," she whispered, gently touching Max's tactical vest. The dog's amber eyes fixed on hers, unwavering in their trust. That same trust had kept them alive for the past 5 years on Atlanta's toughest streets. Tonight, it might be the only thing standing between them and a watery grave. The mission had started simply, a joint operation with naval intelligence to inspect suspicious cargo manifests. Sarah and Max were chosen for their exceptional record in detecting contraband. "Just a quick sweep," Lieutenant Rodriguez had said during the briefing. "In and out before dawn." But Max knew something was wrong the moment they boarded. His behavior changed dramatically during the midnight inspection. Not his usual methodical search pattern, but an aggressive, insistent response to something Sarah couldn't yet see. She'd learned long ago to trust those instincts. The first body they found changed everything. Chief Petty Officer Michael Chen, the real one, stuffed behind crates in the cargo hold. His uniform insignia perfectly matched the man who had greeted them at the gangway, the same man who now hunted them through the ship's passages with a team of heavily armed imposters. Sarah's hand instinctively tightened around her service weapon as footsteps approached from the adjacent corridor. Max's muscles coiled, ready to spring, but she held him back with a gentle hand signal. They couldn't risk a confrontation, not yet. "Check every deck," a harsh voice commanded. The woman and her dog couldn't have gotten far. And remember, the Admiral wants them alive. Admiral. Sarah's blood ran cold. There was only one admiral authorized to be aboard the Shadow Hawk tonight. Admiral James Morrison, the same man her father had tried to investigate 5 years ago, just days before his accidental death at sea. A sudden change in the ship's motion caught her attention. The slight list to port, the deeper thrum of the engines, they were changing course. Sarah pulled out her tactical compass and her heart sank. They were heading northeast, away from their authorized patrol route. Max's ears suddenly pricked and his nose twitched. Sarah felt it too, a subtle change in air pressure. Watertight doors were being sealed. They were being systematically trapped, compartment by compartment. "We need to move, boy," she whispered. Max responded instantly, taking point as they crept toward the aft section. Their only hope lay in reaching the communications room. If they could just get a message out. A sharp crack echoed through the passage, followed by a spray of sparks as a bullet ricocheted off the bulkhead inches from Sarah's head. Max spun, positioning himself between Sarah and the threat, a low growl rumbling in his chest. "Officer Collins." The voice was smooth, cultured, terrifyingly familiar. Admiral Morrison stepped into view at the far end of the corridor, flanked by armed men in false naval uniforms. "I believe we need to have a conversation about what you and your remarkable dog have discovered." Sarah's mind raced. The Admiral's presence confirmed her worst fears. This wasn't just about smuggling. This was something far bigger, something that had cost her father his life. "Max, find it!" she commanded, using their special seek and hide command. The dog burst into action, darting down a side passage as Sarah laid down covering fire. Bullets zinged past as she rolled through a hatchway, sealing it behind her. They had trained for urban warfare on the streets of Atlanta, but this was different. On a ship, there was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, and now they were heading into international waters with a crew of killers and a cargo that was worth murdering for. Max appeared at her side, his behavior urgent but controlled. He wanted her to follow. Years of partnership told her he had found something significant. Together, they moved deeper into the ship's belly, away from their pursuers. The dog led her to a sealed cargo hold, one that wasn't on any of the ship's official manifests. Even through the thick steel door, Sarah could feel an unusual coldness emanating from within. Max's agitation grew stronger, his training warring with his instinct to bark at whatever lay beyond. "Testing the merchandise, Officer Collins." Admiral Morrison's voice echoed through the ship's PA system. "Experimental weapons are rather fascinating, aren't they? Your father thought so too, right before his unfortunate accident." A heavy clang reverberated through the hull, followed by the distinct sound of helicopter rotors. Sarah's hope surged. Rescue? But Max's growing agitation told a different story. This was no rescue party. "Ah, right on schedule." Morrison's voice came again, thick with satisfaction. "Our buyers are here, Officer Collins. I'm afraid this is where your investigation ends." Sarah checked her ammunition. 2 magazines left. Her radio was useless, jammed by equipment somewhere on board. No backup, no communication, no escape route. Just her, Max, and a ship full of traitors heading toward a rendezvous that could threaten national security. She looked at Max, saw the unwavering trust in his eyes. They had faced impossible odds before, but never like this. Whatever waited in that cargo hold, whatever Morrison was planning to sell, they were the only ones who could stop it. "Ready, boy," she whispered, checking her weapon one last time. Max's soft whine was all the answer she needed. Time to find out what was worth killing for. A cold draft swept through the maintenance shaft as Sarah followed Max deeper into the ship's bowels. Her mind flashed back to their first mission together, 5 years ago in Atlanta. Another dark corridor, another life or death situation. But this time, the stakes were even higher. Max suddenly froze, his ears twitching. Sarah held her breath, listening. Through the steel walls came the muffled sound of boots on metal gratings. Search parties, methodically sweeping each level. They were running out of places to hide. The dog's nose led them to a small access panel, barely large enough for a person to squeeze through. Sarah recognized the layout from her father's old stories about naval service. These maintenance shafts weren't on standard ship schematics. They were the secret arteries of the vessel, used by engineering crews during emergencies. As she worked the panel loose, memories flooded back. Her father, Captain James Collins, teaching her about ship design over dinner. "Every vessel has its secrets, Sarah," he'd said. "The trick is knowing where to look." A week later, he was dead. His body found in a similar maintenance shaft on another ship, ruled as an accidental fall. Max's quiet whine brought her back to the present. The panel came loose, revealing a narrow passage bathed in red emergency lighting. They crawled through just as voices echoed from around the corner. "The K9 unit's good," one voice said. "Too good. The Admiral's worried they'll find the prototype before the buyers arrive." "Just find them," another voice growled. "We've got less than an hour before the exchange. And remember, if you see the dog first, shoot it. We can't risk it finding the secondary cargo." Sarah's jaw clenched at the threat to Max. Her hand found his fur, feeling the steady strength beneath. 5 years of partnership had taught her that Max wasn't just a service animal. He was the closest thing to family she had left. They emerged into a small mechanical room filled with humming equipment. Max's behavior changed instantly, his nose working overtime, leading them to a ventilation duct. Sarah recognized the sweet metallic smell, weapons-grade coolant, the kind used for advanced military hardware. A sudden memory hit her, Max's first day at the K9 Academy. He'd been different from the other dogs, more intuitive, more determined. During their first training exercise, he'd ignored the planted contraband samples and instead found a real cache of drugs hidden in the facility's walls. The instructors had been stunned. Sarah had been proud. "Good boy," she whispered now, scratching behind his ears. Max leaned into her touch, offering comfort even as his body remained alert. Their bond had been forged in countless operations, each one building the trust that kept them alive. The ship's PA system crackled. "Officer Collins," Admiral Morrison's voice filled the space. "I knew your father, you know. He was an honorable man until he started asking the wrong questions. Don't make his mistake. Your father thought he could handle it alone too. Look where that got him." Sarah's hands clenched. She remembered the last time she'd seen her father alive. He'd been distracted, worried. "Sometimes duty means standing alone," he'd told her. "Remember that, sweetheart." A sudden explosion rocked the ship. Max steadied himself against Sarah's leg as the vessel listed sharply. Emergency klaxons blared, their piercing wail echoing through the metal corridors. "All hands, battle stations!" Morrison's voice boomed. "Hostile submarine contact, bearing 040. This is not a drill." Sarah's training kicked in. A submarine meant only one thing, the buyers Morrison mentioned. This wasn't just about stolen weapons anymore. This was an international arms deal, one big enough to bring a foreign submarine into US-controlled waters. Max's ears perked up at a new sound. Boots on metal, but lighter, more careful than the search parties. Someone else was trying to move quietly through the ship. They pressed themselves into the shadows as a figure appeared in the doorway. Sarah recognized him instantly, the false Chief Petty Officer Chen. But something was different about his movement now, more professional, more precise. Chen swept the room with a practiced eye, then spoke softly into a concealed radio. "Echo 6 to control. No sign of the K9 unit, but I've confirmed the package location. The Admiral's selling us more than we thought. Orders." Sarah's breath caught. Chen was an undercover operative. But for whom? Max watched the man intently, his posture alert but not aggressive. A good sign. The deep, resonant hum of the submarine grew louder, vibrating through the ship's hull. Time was running out. If they didn't act soon, Morrison would complete his sail and disappear into international waters. "We have to move," Chen whispered, suddenly speaking to the shadows where Sarah and Max hid. "I know you're here, Officer Collins. I'm NSA. We've been tracking this operation for months." Sarah kept her weapon trained on him. "Prove it." Chen slowly reached into his collar and withdrew a familiar medallion, identical to the one her father always wore. "Captain Collins was our inside man 5 years ago. He got too close, so they killed him, made it look like an accident. We've been building a case ever since, waiting for Morrison to lead us to his buyers." Max studied Chen intently, then relaxed slightly. Sarah had learned to trust her partner's judgment of character. The dog had a sixth sense about people that had saved their lives more than once. "The submarine out there," Chen continued, "North Korean. They're here for more than just weapons. The prototype is—" A burst of gunfire cut him off. Chen dove for cover as bullets sparked off the machinery. At the far end of the room, Morrison's men had found them. "Max, protect!" Sarah commanded. The dog sprang into action, years of training taking over as chaos erupted in the confined space. Time to discover what secret was worth her father's life, and possibly their own. Bullets ricocheted off steel walls as Sarah, Max, and Chen sprinted through the narrow corridor. The acrid smell of gunpowder mixed with the ship's perpetual scent of metal and salt. Behind them, Morrison's men were closing in, their boots thundering against the deck plating. "This way!" Chen called out, leading them toward the ship's bow. Max ran point, his training keeping him focused despite the chaos. The dog suddenly veered left, letting out a low, warning growl. Seconds later, bullets peppered the spot where they would have been. Sarah's mind raced between the immediate danger and the revelation about her father. 5 years of believing his death was an accident, only to discover he'd been murdered for getting too close to Morrison's operation. The same operation she and Max had stumbled into tonight. They reached a cross corridor where Chen pulled up short. "The prototype's in the forward hold," he whispered, "but Morrison's got the whole deck locked down. We need a distraction." Max's ears suddenly pricked up. Sarah recognized his alert posture. He'd caught a scent. "What is it, boy?" she asked, trusting his instincts completely. The dog moved to a nearby ventilation grate, his nose working overtime. Your dog's something else, Collins? Now I understand why Morrison's so scared of him. The prototype has a unique chemical signature, almost impossible to detect without specialized equipment. Max was top of his class, Sarah said, following her dog's lead. But this is different. I've never seen him this focused. She studied the ventilation shaft. This connects to the cargo hold? Directly, Chen confirmed, but it's too small for us. Maybe for Max, though. No, Sarah's voice was firm. We stay together. The memory of her father dying alone flashed through her mind. A new voice echoed through the ship's PA system. Officer Collins. It wasn't Morrison this time. The voice was younger, with a slight Asian accent. This is Commander Park of the Korean People's Navy. We know you and your dog have discovered our operation. Perhaps we can negotiate. Chen's face hardened. Park's their top weapons buyer. If he's making direct contact, we're running out of time, Sarah finished. Max nudged her leg, still intent on the ventilation shaft. She looked at her partner, seeing the determination in his amber eyes. Suddenly, the ship's emergency lights flashed red. A new alarm blared through the corridors. Radiation alert in cargo hold 3, an automated voice announced. All personnel clear the area. That's it, Chen said. The prototype's shielding must be failing. If that thing goes critical in the middle of the Atlantic... Sarah made her decision. Max, find it, she commanded, using their special search protocol. The dog immediately began working his way through the narrow spaces between the pipes, following the scent only he could detect. Wait, Chen grabbed Sarah's arm. Morrison's men will be evacuating. This is our chance to access the ship's secure communications. We can alert the Coast Guard, call in support. You do that, Sarah said, checking her weapon. I'm following Max. She saw the protest forming on Chen's face. My father died because he didn't have backup. I'm not making the same mistake with my partner. Chen studied her for a moment, then nodded. 3rd deck, forward communications room. When you find the prototype, meet me there. And Collins, watch yourself. Morrison's not the only one with a hidden agenda on this ship. Sarah followed Max's path through the maintenance accessway, her father's words echoing in her mind. Sometimes duty means standing alone, but she wasn't alone. She had Max. The radiation warnings continued as they moved deeper into the ship. The temperature dropped noticeably. Whatever the prototype was, it required serious cooling. Max moved with purpose, leading them through a maze of technical spaces. They emerged into a dimly lit corridor near the forward cargo hold. 2 armed guards lay unconscious on the deck, not Morrison's men, judging by their tactical gear. North Korean Special Forces. Max froze, his attention fixed on a heavy blast door at the end of the corridor. Sarah felt it before she saw it, an unnatural cold radiating from behind the steel. The door's security panel blinked red, but she recognized the override sequence from her father's old notes. The blast door opened with a hydraulic hiss, revealing a cargo hold transformed into a high-tech laboratory. Banks of computers lined the walls, their screens displaying incomprehensible data. But it was the device in the center that drew their attention, a silvery cylinder about the size of a car engine, surrounded by cooling pipes. Beautiful, isn't it? Admiral Morrison stepped from behind a bank of equipment, his sidearm aimed steadily at Sarah's chest. Your father thought so too, called it a quantum leap in weapons technology. He wasn't wrong. Sarah kept her own weapon trained on Morrison as Max took up a protective stance. You killed him. I gave him a choice, Morrison said. The same choice I'm giving you. Some secrets are too valuable to expose, Officer Collins. You're selling it to North Korea, Morrison smiled. I'm selling them a prototype, an expensive prototype that won't work without the activation codes, codes that certain parties in Washington will pay handsomely to protect. You're playing both sides, Sarah said, the pieces finally falling into place. The North Koreans, the government, all of it. It's called strategy, Officer Collins, something your father never... Max's warning growl cut him off. Sarah heard it too. Footsteps approaching from multiple directions. Backups on the way, Morrison said. Last chance. Your father died for his principles. Are you ready to do the same? Sarah looked at Max, saw the unwavering loyalty in his eyes. She thought of her father, dying alone in a maintenance shaft, much like this one. Then she smiled. "I'm not alone," she said, and gave Max the attack command. Max launched himself at Morrison with lightning speed, a blur of dark fur and tactical gear. The Admiral's shot went wide as the dog's impact sent him sprawling. Sarah was already moving, diving behind a computer bank as Morrison's backup burst through the door. The prototype hummed ominously in its cooling cradle, casting an eerie blue glow across the cargo hold-turned-laboratory. The radiation warning continued to blare through the ship's speakers, mixing with the sounds of gunfire and shouted commands. "Hold your fire!" Morrison yelled, struggling to his feet. "You'll hit the containment unit." Sarah used the moment of hesitation to her advantage. "Max, guard!" The dog immediately took up a defensive position, giving her cover as she worked her way toward the prototype's control panel. Her father's old lessons about naval technology might give her an edge if she could just figure out what this thing was. The computer displays showed a cascade of data: quantum signatures, radiation levels, containment protocols. This wasn't just a weapon. It was something entirely new, something that could change the balance of power overnight. "Officer Collins!" Commander Park's voice came through the ship's PA again. "Our submarine is alongside. You have 5 minutes to surrender the prototype, or we will begin targeting the ship's critical systems." A bullet sparked off the metal next to Sarah's head. Morrison's men were getting bolder, trying to work their way around Max's defensive position. The dog's growls grew deeper, more threatening. "You don't understand what you're dealing with," Morrison called out. "That prototype is unstable. One wrong move, and it'll take half the Atlantic with it." Sarah's hands flew across the control panel, recognizing patterns in the code, scrolling past. "You're lying," she said. "The radiation warnings are fake. A failsafe to clear the ship. This isn't a weapon at all, is it?" Morrison's laugh was cold. "Clever girl, just like your father. He figured it out too, right before..." The ship suddenly lurched violently to port. Warning klaxons changed tone as new alerts filled the screens. The North Koreans had made good on their threat, targeting the vessel's steering systems. 2 minutes, Officer Collins," Park's voice announced. "The next strike will not be a warning." Sarah's mind raced. The prototype, the buyers, Morrison's double game, it all hinged on something bigger than weapons. "It's a quantum computer," she said, the realization hitting her. "The next generation of cryptography. Whoever controls it, controls every military secret on the planet. Worth killing for, isn't it?" Morrison adjusted his grip on his weapon. "Your father understood the stakes. He chose to die rather than let it fall into the wrong hands. Are you prepared to do the same?" Max's growl deepened as more of Morrison's men filed into the laboratory. Sarah counted at least 6 guns trained on her position, but the dog held his ground, protecting her as she worked. A new voice crackled through her radio. "Chen, Collins, I've reached the communications room. Whatever you're planning, do it fast. We've got multiple submarines on sonar. This isn't just North Korea anymore." The prototype's displays suddenly shifted, showing new data. The quantum core was processing something massive, its cooling system straining to keep up. Sarah recognized the pattern from her cybersecurity training. It was breaking encryption, military encryption. "It's not just about selling the prototype," she said. "You're using it right now, aren't you? Stealing classified data while everyone fights over the hardware." Morrison smiled. "The prototype is worthless without the quantum core's access keys, keys that will fetch a fortune from certain interested parties. Now, step away from the controls." "Collins!" Chen's voice was urgent. "Chinese fast attack subs just surfaced on the starboard side. Russian dolphins 3 miles out. This is about to become an international incident." The ship shuddered again as another impact rocked the hull. Warning lights flashed as compartments began to flood. They were running out of time. Sarah looked at Max, still holding his protective stance despite the overwhelming odds. The dog's loyalty had never wavered, not once in 5 years. She thought of her father, dying alone to protect a secret. But she wasn't alone. "Max," she said quietly, using their special command code. "Protocol 7. The dog's ears twitched. They had practiced this, but never in the field. It was a last resort, a combination of their most advanced training scenarios. Everything would have to be perfect. Morrison must have sensed something was wrong. "Take them down," he ordered, but it was too late. Max exploded into action as Sarah dove for the prototype's cooling controls. The dog moved with incredible precision, years of training culminating in a perfectly choreographed sequence. He didn't attack. Instead, he targeted the lab's sensitive equipment, creating a cascade of confusion and chaos. Sarah's fingers flew across the keyboard, implementing the last command her father had hidden in the ship's systems. A final gift from a man who knew too much and had died to protect the truth. "No!" Morrison's shout was drowned out by the sound of the prototype's containment system engaging emergency protocols. The quantum core began to lock down, its secrets sealing themselves away forever. Through her radio, Chen's voice was triumphant. "Signal sent! Cavalry's on the way, Collins. Just hold on." Sarah looked at her father's murderer and smiled. "Check and mate, Admiral." The prototype's screen flashed one last message. "Core secure. Captain Collins' protocol activated." Sometimes, Sarah realized, the greatest act of loyalty isn't dying for what you believe in, it's living to finish the mission. The ship's hull groaned under the assault of massive waves as a storm raged outside. Water was flooding the lower decks, and the prototype's containment chamber flickered with emergency power. Morrison's face contorted with rage as he watched years of planning unravel before his eyes. "Override it!" he screamed at his technicians. "That system wasn't supposed to exist!" But Sarah's father had buried his failsafe too deep. The quantum core was locked down, its secrets sealed away from those who would abuse them. Max maintained his defensive position, muscles coiled and ready. Through her radio, she could hear the chaos unfolding throughout the ship. Chen was coordinating with incoming US forces, while the North Korean submarine continued its threatening maneuvers alongside. "You've doomed us all," Morrison snarled, his composed demeanor finally cracking. "That prototype was the only thing keeping our enemies at bay. Without it, they'll start a war. Is that what you want? To finish what your father started?" An explosion rocked the ship, larger than the previous impacts. Warning klaxons screamed as new alerts flooded the screens. "Hull breach, Deck 4!" An automated voice announced. "Emergency protocols engaged. Chinese vessels opening fire on North Korean submarine," Chen reported through the radio. "Russians moving to intercept. Collins, we need to get out of there now. This whole thing is about to become World War III. Sarah's mind raced. They were trapped in the lab with Morrison's men, while 3 nuclear powers played chicken in the waters around them. And somewhere above, through the howling storm, a rescue force was trying to reach them. "Max, cover!" she commanded. The dog responded instantly, knocking over a rack of sensitive equipment. Sparks and smoke filled the air as Morrison's men scrambled for cover. Sarah used the confusion to reach for the prototype's physical backup drive, the only copy of her father's final evidence. A bullet grazed her arm as Morrison charged through the chaos. "Like father, like daughter," he spat, "always thinking you know better than the rest of us. Your father died protecting his precious principles. Now you'll die for them too." Max's attack caught him mid-sentence. The dog moved like a shadow, years of training evident in every motion. His jaws clamped onto Morrison's arm with military precision, but the Admiral was ready this time. His hidden combat knife flashed in the emergency lights. "No!" Sarah's scream was lost in the sound of gunfire as Morrison's men tried to get a clear shot at Max. The dog and the Admiral went down in a tangle of fur and fury. The ship listed sharply as another explosion hit. Water began seeping under the laboratory door, bringing with it the smell of smoke and burning fuel. They were running out of time. "Collins!" Chen's voice crackled through static. Navy SEALs are 5 minutes out, but that Chinese destroyer isn't waiting. They're moving to firing positions. The Russians are threatening to intervene if anyone approaches the prototype. Get out of there. Sarah saw her opening. While Morrison wrestled with Max, his men were distracted by the rising water and chaos. The prototype's backup drive was in reach, but as she moved, Morrison managed to land a hit on Max. The dog yelped in pain. Time seemed to slow. Sarah had a clear shot at Morrison, but taking it would mean losing the drive, the evidence that would expose everything, clear her father's name, and bring down Morrison's entire network. Everything she'd fought for was within reach. Max's eyes met hers, unwavering despite his injury. Trust, loyalty, and something more reflected in that gaze. Her father had died alone, choosing duty over survival, but her father hadn't had a partner like Max. Sarah made her choice. Max escaped protocol. She fired 3 rapid shots, not at Morrison, but at the laboratory's primary power coupling. The room plunged into darkness as emergency lighting kicked in. Max disengaged instantly, years of training guiding him through their practiced escape maneuvers. Morrison's men fired blindly in the darkness as Sarah grabbed the backup drive and ran. "After them!" Morrison's voice was thick with pain and fury. "Don't let them reach the SEALs. Kill the dog if you have to, but get that drive!" Water was ankle-deep in the corridor as Sarah and Max raced through the dying ship. Above, the storm howled through damaged sections of the hull. Behind them, Morrison was organizing a final hunt. "Chen, we need an exit route," Sarah called through her radio as they ran. "Working on it," he replied. "Head for the forward deck. SEALs are coming in hot," but static cut him off as another explosion rocked the ship. Through a passing window, Sarah caught glimpses of the naval battle unfolding around them. Searchlights cut through the storm as ships maneuvered in the darkness. Somewhere out there, American forces were coming. If they could just hold out. Max suddenly stopped, his posture alert. Sarah heard it too, movement in the cross corridor ahead. Multiple footsteps, moving with military precision. They were being herded. "Nowhere left to run, Officer Collins." Morrison's voice echoed through the flooding passages. "Give me the drive and I'll let you live. More than I gave your father. His principles died with him in that maintenance shaft. Is that what you want?" Sarah checked her ammunition. 1 magazine left. The backup drive felt heavy in her pocket, weighted with the truth it contained. Above, the storm raged on as 3 nuclear powers played a deadly game of brinksmanship over a quantum secret. She looked at Max, saw the same determination she felt reflected in his eyes. They had come too far to give up now. Her father had died to protect this truth, but he had died alone. Sarah had something he didn't, a partner she trusted with her life. "Ready, boy?" she whispered. Max's quiet growl was all the answer she needed. Together, they prepared to make their final stand. Thunder cracked overhead as Sarah and Max faced Morrison's approaching team. Through windows streaked with rain, lightning illuminated the silhouettes of warships maneuvering in the darkness. The prototype's backup drive felt heavy in Sarah's pocket. 5 years of secrets, finally ready to come to light. "Last chance, Collins!" Morrison's voice echoed through the flooding corridor. "That drive stays buried, or this ends just like it did for your father." Max's ears suddenly pricked forward. Sarah heard it too, the distinctive thrum of helicopter rotors cutting through the storm. The SEALs were close, but Morrison's men were closer. "Chen, status," she whispered into her radio. "SEALs are 30 seconds out," he responded through static. "But Collins, the Chinese destroyer just locked weapons on the Russian cruiser. The North Koreans are preparing to dive. If those quantum secrets get out, they won't," Sarah said, her hand finding comfort in Max's fur. The dog's muscles were tense, ready. Dad made sure of that. Morrison appeared at the end of the corridor, flanked by armed men. His uniform was torn, bloody marks on his arm where Max had gotten hold of him. "Your father was a fool," he spat. "He thought keeping secrets was the same as keeping peace." "No," Sarah replied, fingers tightening on her weapon. He knew the difference between secrets and lies. Max, defensive pattern. The dog exploded into action as Sarah opened fire. Their years of training showed in every movement. Max driving Morrison's men into Sarah's line of fire, Sarah covering Max's advances. They'd practiced this countless times, but never with lives on the line. A bullet caught Sarah in the leg just as the first explosion rocked the ship. The Chinese destroyer had opened fire, not at them, but at the North Korean submarine attempting to flee. The entire vessel shuddered. "Incoming!" Chen's voice crackled. "Seals are hot on deck, multiple targets. Collins, get up here now!" Morrison used the chaos to charge forward, knife glinting in the emergency lights, but Max was faster. The dog intercepted the Admiral mid-stride, their impact sending both sprawling dangerously close to the flooding stairwell. "Max!" Sarah's scream was lost in another explosion. Water was pouring in faster now as the ship took more damage. Through the window, she saw American helicopters hovering in the storm, ropes dropping as SEAL teams began their assault. Morrison kicked Max away and lunged for Sarah. "Give me the drive!" His knife slashed inches from her face as they grappled. Behind him, his men were engaged in a firefight with the approaching SEALs. Max recovered and circled, looking for an opening. Sarah could see the strategy in his movements, all their training scenarios coming together. She just had to trust him. "Now, boy!" she shouted, using their special command. Max's attack was perfect, catching Morrison from behind just as Sarah twisted away. The Admiral's knife went spinning into the churning water. The ship lurched violently as more explosions hit. "Collins!" Chen's voice was urgent. "Russians are moving to block the Chinese." "We've got minutes before this turns into an international incident." Sarah pulled the backup drive from her pocket, holding it where Morrison could see it. "It's over, Admiral. Everything Dad found, everything you tried to bury, it's all coming out." "You'll start a war," Morrison snarled, blood running down his face. "Those secrets get out, there's no going back." "Your father understood that." "No," Sarah said. "Dad understood that the real threat wasn't the secrets. It was people like you using them for power." She turned to the approaching SEALs. "Admiral Morrison is under arrest for treason, murder, and conspiracy." The next few minutes were a blur of action. SEALs secured Morrison and his men, while others helped evacuate the flooding decks. Through it all, Max stayed by Sarah's side, alert for any final threats. Chen met them on the helicopter deck, rain pelting his grim face. "Russians are standing down. Chinese too. North Korean sub is disabled, but we've got bigger problems. The prototype's core is going critical." Sarah smiled, thinking of her father. "No, it's not. Dad's failsafe wasn't just about locking down the data. Check the core's signature." Chen's eyes widened as he looked at his tablet. "It's degrading. The quantum patterns are scrambling themselves." "Dead man's switch," Sarah explained. "If the prototype was ever used for unauthorized access, it would destroy itself. Dad made sure no one could abuse it." The sky was beginning to lighten as they were evacuated to a waiting destroyer. Sarah watched as Morrison was led away in chains, his empire of secrets finally crumbling. Max pressed against her leg, offering silent support as always. Across the water, the USS Shadowhawk was being secured by American forces. The prototype would never threaten world security again. More importantly, her father's final mission was complete. 3 days later, Sarah stood in dress uniform before a closed Senate committee. Max sat at attention beside her as she presented the evidence, not just of Morrison's treason, but of her father's heroism. The quantum secrets would remain secret, but the truth about who protected them would finally be known. Captain James Collins was posthumously awarded the Navy Cross. His daughter and her 4-legged partner received the Distinguished Service Medal. But for Sarah, the greatest honor came afterward, when the FBI's K-9 division requested them for a new special unit, one dedicated to uncovering the kinds of secrets that Morrison had tried to exploit. Back home in Atlanta, Sarah placed her father's restored medal beside their new commendations. Max watched from his bed, ever alert, ever loyal. "What do you think, boy?" she asked. "Ready for new adventures?" Max's tail wagged once, decisive. Some partnerships were simply meant to be, and some secrets, Sarah had learned, were best protected not by dying alone, but by living to fight alongside those you trust.